I thought she was taking care of me. Turns out she was slowly killing me one spoonful at a time. That night, the soup smelled like comfort. Pumpkin and cinnamon, just the way I liked it. Bella placed the bowl in front of me with that soft smile, warm, sweet, almost too perfect. "Eat while it's hot, Mom," she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Her voice is gentle. Her hands are steady. I nodded, took the spoon, stirred the golden surface. I even said thank you, because back then, I still believed she loved me. But a few hours later, I was on the floor. Vision blurred, heart pounding. I couldn't move, could barely breathe. I remember the cold tile pressing against my cheek, the sound of Bella humming in the kitchen like nothing was wrong. Then everything went dark. I raised Alex alone. His father walked out when he was barely 3, and from that moment on, it was just the two of us. I worked double shifts, took side jobs on weekends, and skipped more meals than I care to remember, just so he'd never feel the hunger I did. I watched him grow with pride. His first bike, his first job the day he got into college, I cheered him through all of it, even when I was too exhausted to stand. I never missed a moment. Never let him see how hard it really was. Because for me, being his mother meant giving everything. Every last drop. When he met Bella, I thought my efforts had finally paid off. She was graceful, well-spoken, always smiling. The kind of girl you dream your son will marry. Alex brought her home one evening for dinner, and by dessert she was calling me Mom. I liked that. When they said they were getting married, I offered to help with the wedding. When they said they couldn't afford a place yet, I cleared out the master bedroom and told them to move in. "Stay as long as you need," I said. "This house is big enough for all of us." Bella thanked me, hugged me like she meant it, called me generous, said she'd take care of me like I'd taken care of Alex. It made me feel seen. She started cooking almost right away, told me she loved being in the kitchen, said it relaxed her. Every night, I'd come home to something warm, chicken stew, pumpkin soup, beef barley with rosemary. She made it all with a smile. Even brought it to me in bed sometimes when I wasn't feeling well. "Your health is so important," she'd say sweetly, tucking a napkin under my chin. "You've done so much. Let me give back a little." I remember thinking maybe I really do have a daughter now. Someone who understood what I gave. Someone who cared enough to give something back. So I smiled. I said thank you. I took the soup. And I never thought to question what was in it. It started with a little dizziness. I'd stand up too quickly and the room would tilt just for a second. Then came the fatigue. No matter how much I slept, I woke up drained like my bones were heavier than they used to be. I brushed it off. I was getting older, after all. 60 isn't young. But then I started forgetting things. Names, dates. One day, I left the stove on. Another, I found the kettle boiling dry. I laughed it off in front of Bella, but inside, a quiet fear was growing. I wasn't clumsy. I wasn't forgetful. At least, not before. My hair began to fall out. Not in handfuls, but enough to notice. My brush filled faster. My pillow started showing strands that weren't there before. I lost my appetite, but my stomach always felt strange. Heavy. Tense. I told my doctor everything. He smiled gently and said, "It's probably stress. Or hormonal. Nothing serious." But something deep inside me stirred. An instinct. A warning. This wasn't normal. Bella kept smiling. She'd hand me my soup with both hands like a ritual. "This is good for you, Mom," she'd whisper. "You need to keep your strength up." Each night, a different flavor. Each night, a little thicker than the last. Some nights, I'd feel drowsy before I even finished the bowl. She'd take it from me, kiss my forehead, rest well. And I did. I rested because I couldn't stay awake. Some mornings I'd wake up with no memory of the night before. My sheets twisted. My clothes are slightly damp with sweat. Bella would already be up in the kitchen humming like nothing had ever happened. I told myself it was menopause. Maybe high blood pressure. Maybe grief I never processed. I wanted so badly to believe it was something natural, something explainable. But I'd look at my reflection. Sunken eyes, pale skin, trembling hands, and deep down, I knew. My body wasn't betraying me. Something, or someone, was. And every time Bella handed me that steaming bowl eyes full of sweetness, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Because the sicker I became, the brighter she smiled. It was just past midnight. I couldn't sleep. My head was spinning again, and my throat was dry. I slipped out of bed quietly, hoping not to wake anyone. As I walked down the hallway toward the kitchen, I passed their bedroom. The door wasn't fully closed. Just a sliver of space. Just enough. At first I wasn't going to look, but then I heard it. Bella's voice low, smooth, too calm. She's getting weaker. Another month and we won't even have to push. My feet stopped cold. My breath caught. Alex answered, voice flat. Speed it up. I want this done before Christmas. Something inside me cracked. My hand gripped the wall. I felt the blood drain from my face, but I didn't move, didn't flinch. I stood there, frozen heart pounding like a war drum in my ears. They kept talking. Bella laughed soft and cruel. She doesn't even question it anymore. She just eats whatever I bring her. It's pathetic. Alex gave a snort. It's not pathetic. It's perfect. She wants to go out quietly. Let her. And then, silence. I stepped back into the shadows. Every muscle in my body tensed, but my face stayed blank. I didn't cry. Didn't shake. Not then. I walked to the kitchen like nothing happened. Drank my water. Stared at the tiled wall as if it could explain what I'd just heard. They were planning something, and I'd just heard the rehearsal. My son, my daughter-in-law, whispering about my death like it was an appointment they just had to keep. I lay in bed the rest of the night staring at the ceiling. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. My mind kept replaying their words, their tones, the timing. Another month. Before Christmas. No need to push. They weren't waiting for me to die. They were making sure I did. And the worst part wasn't the plan. It was how easy it had become for them. How casual. The woman I welcomed into my home. The son I gave everything to. I had no proof, no witnesses, no one to call. So I did the only thing I could. I smiled, and I waited. Because now I know. And they had no idea. The next morning, I smiled at Bella like nothing had changed. She brought me my usual bowl creamy potato leek, and I thanked her with the same soft voice I always used. I even complimented her seasoning. She beamed, but this time, I didn't drink it. I waited until she left the room, then poured the soup carefully into a thermos I had hidden in my nightstand. I rinsed the bowl left just enough at the bottom to look believable and returned it to the sink like always. That night, I began documenting everything: time, color, taste, texture, how I felt before, how I felt after. I collected every sample, marked them with dates, and froze them. On the third day, I made a phone call to a private lab 3 towns over. Told them I needed full toxicology screening, no questions. Cash only. They agreed. The same day I went online and ordered 2 things: a miniature hidden camera and a motion-activated voice recorder. Both arrived in discreet packaging. I installed the camera high above the stove, tucked behind a ceramic teapot. She never moved. By the end of the week, I had hours of footage. At first, it looked normal. Bella chopping, stirring, adding spices. But then came the moment I was waiting for. She pulled a small glass vial from her apron pocket, unscrewed it, tapped in just a pinch of something white fine, almost like powdered sugar, into the soup. Stirred slowly, carefully, no hesitation. The footage showed her doing this 3 different times, 3 different days. Each time the same pattern, each time the same vial. When the lab results came back, my hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Digitalis, a powerful toxin, plant-based, slow-acting, attacks the heart, undetectable in small doses, builds over time. My pulse pounded. My skin went cold. It wasn't paranoia. It wasn't aging. I was being poisoned. And the dose was increasing. Bella wasn't just trying to make me sick. She was trying to erase me slowly, silently, behind a mask of care. But she didn't know I already had the proof. Didn't know I'd seen her hands, her face. Didn't know the woman she thought was weak was already 1 step ahead. The night I got the lab results, I sat in my room with the lights off, letting the silence stretch around me. My hands were still, my mind was not. I needed to know why. So I pulled out my laptop, logged into every account, bank statements, emails, insurance. At first, everything seemed normal until I saw it. A life insurance policy, $200,000, active. Premium, in my name. The beneficiary, Alex. I didn't remember signing up for anything, but the date listed on the file matched a week after they moved in. When Bella came to me with some papers and said, "These are just for emergencies, if anything ever happens." She smiled so sweetly that day, said it was just a precaution, said all families did this, and I like a fool signed. But that wasn't all. The deeper I dug, the more I found. Bella had been Googling things on my home computer. I checked the browser history. Her name was logged in. Dozens of searches. Power of attorney process for elderly. Can you sign over assets if mentally unfit? How to take over finances from an aging parent. They weren't waiting for nature to take its course. They were preparing for the finish line. Every move had been calculated. Every smile rehearsed. And I had handed them the tools myself. The accounts I let Alex help manage. The documents I didn't double check. The house I gave them access to. All of it. One by one, they'd tighten the noose. Bella's soups weren't just an experiment in cruelty. They were buying time. Breaking me down slowly, so when the final stroke came, an accident, a stroke, a heart attack, no one would question a thing. I was going to die quietly, in my own home, with my murderer spoon-feeding me goodnight. I stared at the screen, blinking back the heat behind my eyes. But no more. They wanted to finish me before Christmas. Then I'd make sure the holidays came early. For them. There was still something about Bella that didn't sit right with me. Her smile. It was too perfect. Too polished. Like she'd done this before. So I did something I'd never done since she married Alex. I looked into her past. At first, it was just a name on an old envelope I found while cleaning. A return address. A woman named Margaret. The handwriting looked frail but familiar. I remembered Bella mentioning she'd once worked as a live-in caregiver for an elderly couple. She said it casually, like it meant nothing. But I called the number anyway. Margaret answered on the second ring. Her voice was soft, cautious. I introduced myself, said I was Bella's mother-in-law. There was a pause. Then she asked, "Is she still working in your home?" That's when I knew. Margaret didn't hesitate after that. She told me everything. Bella had worked for her and her husband, Walter. At first, she was helpful, quiet, respectful. But after just a few months, Walter, who had been stable for years, suddenly began declining. Dizziness, slurred speech, weakness. Margaret thought it was just aging, until the day she came home early and found Bella crushing up pills in the kitchen. Not his prescribed ones, something else. The same day, Walter collapsed. He died that night. The cause was ruled natural. No one pressed further. But Margaret fired Bella immediately. Couldn't prove anything. Couldn't forget it either. Then she said something that made my skin crawl. I was too scared to report her. But my son, he never let it go. Her son was a local prosecutor, a quiet man with a long memory. I took a chance and asked if she would put me in touch. 2 days later, I met him in a coffee shop near the courthouse. I showed him the footage, the lab report, the insurance policy. He didn't blink. She's done this before, he said, his voice cold. But this time, she left a trail. And just like that, I wasn't alone anymore. Bella thought she was playing the perfect game, but she forgot every perfect crime leaves fingerprints. And this time, someone was finally going to dust them. I waited for the perfect moment. One quiet afternoon, I called Alex into the living room. Bella followed her usual smile painted on like blush. I sat at the table with a thick envelope in my hand and a soft, tired look on my face. I've been thinking, I said gently. It's time to put things in order. I want to transfer the house and my assets to you now while I'm still here. No surprises later, no legal mess when I'm gone. Alex blinked. Wait. Really? Bella's eyes welled up instantly. Oh, Mom, she whispered, dabbing her cheek with a tissue she pulled from her sleeve like it was rehearsed. You don't have to do that. I smiled. But I want to. I handed them the documents, legal-looking complete with a notary seal and signature lines. Everything about them screamed official. But they weren't. Just a stack of non-binding drafts, carefully prepared by a very helpful paralegal I'd met through the prosecutor. Alex signed immediately, barely reading a word. Bella hesitated just a second longer, scanning the last page, but when she saw the bold title, Transfer of Ownership, her grin returned. That night, I cooked dinner. Their favorites. Braised short ribs with rosemary, creamy mashed potatoes, Bella's beloved truffle mushroom soup. I lit candles, set out the good dishes, poured wine. They sat across from me like royalty, laughing, toasting, celebrating their good fortune. Mom, this is incredible, Alex said, shoveling food into his mouth. You didn't have to do all this. Bella leaned over and squeezed my hand. We're going to take such good care of this house. You'll never have to worry again. I smiled sweetly, refilling their glasses. Inside, I was ice. They thought the prize was already theirs, thought they had finally won. But what they didn't realize was that they hadn't walked into an inheritance. They'd walked straight into a trap. And tonight, I was the one stirring the pot. I waited until the second glass of wine was gone, until their plates were nearly clean, until Bella leaned back in her chair, eyes half-lidded, soaking in the illusion of victory. Then I gave them a show. One hand went to my chest. I gasped sharply suddenly, then pushed back from the table, staggering to my feet. Mom, Alex said, blinking. You okay? I didn't answer. I let the wine glass shatter at my feet. My legs buckled. I dropped hard onto the floor, knocking over the chair as I went. My body twitched just enough. Then stillness. Bella screamed. Alex, she shrieked. Do something. He fumbled for his phone, knocking over a candle in his panic. She's having a heart attack. I need an ambulance. Right now, I let the chaos swirl around me. Their footsteps, their shouting, the sirens. I didn't speak, didn't move. Not until I felt the gurney beneath me and the cold air of the hospital rushing past overhead lights. Monitors beeped. A nurse asked questions. A doctor hovered. But nothing was wrong. Not really, because I never touched that soup. And I didn't collapse from poison. It was salt water on my skin, not sweat. A harmless medication tucked under my tongue to mimic palpitations. A crash onto padded flooring I had subtly laid under the dining chair earlier that day. All of it. Rehearsed. I miraculously stabilized within the hour. Blood pressure is normal. No signs of heart attack. A fluke, they said. Maybe stress. Maybe dehydration. Bella and Alex hovered outside the door, pale and shaken, whispering. I saw the doubt creeping in, the fear. They didn't know what had gone wrong, why the plan hadn't worked, but I did. Because the plan had never been mine to follow. It was mine to rewrite. And as I sat in that stiff hospital bed, surrounded by white walls and blinking machines, I asked for discharge. I feel better, I said sweetly. I want to go home. They looked surprised, even disappointed, but they didn't say no. Because as far as they knew, the game was still on. Only now I was holding the pen, and the next chapter would be mine. 2 days after I came home from the hospital, I asked Alex and Bella to join me in the living room. They looked hesitant, nervous even, but I kept my voice light. I just want to show you something, I said, smiling. Bella sat on the edge of the couch, legs crossed tightly, eyes flicking to the hallway. Alex slumped into the armchair beside her, arms folded, pretending to be bored. I picked up the remote and pressed play. At first, it looked like any ordinary kitchen scene. Bella at the stove, stirring soup, humming to herself. Then came the moment. She reached into her apron pocket, pulled out a tiny vial, uncapped it, tilted the contents into the pot. Alex sat up. Bella didn't blink. The footage cut to another day. Same scene, different soup, same vial, and again, and again. 4 times, 4 different nights, the same cold ritual. When the screen faded to black, I turned to face them, calm, steady. I slid an envelope across the table. Inside, lab results, digitalis, confirmed, lethal in high doses, present in every sample. Beside it, another folder, the house transfer papers they signed. Non-binding, I said. Just drafts, not legal. But thanks for your signatures. Bella's hands trembled as she opened the folder. Alex's mouth opened, then closed. No words came out. Before they could react, there was a knock at the door. 3 sharp raps. I didn't move, just looked at Bella. You remember Margaret, I said softly, the woman you worked for before me. She paled. Her husband didn't die naturally, did he? Before she could answer, the door opened behind me. 2 officers stepped in, calm, efficient. No drama. Isabella Hart, one asked. You're under arrest for attempted murder and premeditated poisoning. Bella gasped. Alex jumped to his feet. Wait, I didn't do anything. Alex Dawson. The officer continued. You're being detained for conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted murder. Their protests blurred into background noise. I watched in silence as they were cuffed and led out of my house. The house they thought belonged to them. The house they were ready to bury me for. But the only thing being buried now was their freedom. The first letter came 2 weeks after their arrest. The envelope was thin, the handwriting familiar. Sloppy. Rushed. Desperate. It was from Alex. Inside, a single sheet. Mom, I didn't know it'd go that far. I didn't know what Bella was doing. I thought it was just about the insurance. I never wanted to hurt you. I read it once, then again. Not a single line said I'm sorry. Just excuses, deflection, cowardice. So I wrote back. I didn't start with anger. I didn't waste space on rage. Instead, I attached something else. A thick packet of papers, itemized records, receipts, and statements. Every hospital bill, every tuition payment, every car repair therapy session and rent check, every birthday, every Christmas, every bailout. 432, 118. That's what I had spent raising him. At the bottom, I added one final line. You were my son, before you became my executioner. I sealed the envelope, walked to the mailbox, dropped it in without blinking. He wanted to say he didn't know, but he knew enough to sign the policy, to stand by while she poisoned me, to call it a good plan. So now he'd know something else, the cost of betrayal and the price of losing a mother forever. I sold the house not long after the trial ended. The same house where I raised Alex, where I cried over bills, birthdays, and betrayals. I didn't need its memories anymore. Most of the money I donated to a foundation that helps survivors of elder abuse. Women like me. Women who gave too much and were left with nothing. Not this time. I moved to a small town by the sea, the kind of place where the waves drown out old ghosts, where no one calls you mom unless they mean it. I cook my own soup now, lavender, basil, and rosemary, spiced with peace, not betrayal. Some nights I sit on my porch and listen to the wind. Other nights I get letters, small, neat handwriting from the prosecutor, Leonard. Sometimes he visits. We drink tea. He brings pastries. I pretend not to notice how he always brings two of everything. I thought I'd spend my old age as someone's burden, a faded woman waiting to die in a house that no longer felt like home. But now I wake up without fear. I sleep without pills. I breathe without bitterness. Turns out I'm not at the end. I'm just getting started.